My husband drugged me every night for 6 months. I thought I was just taking vitamins to help with my stress-induced insomnia, but one night I pretended to swallow the pill and kept it under my tongue. I waited in the dark, listening to the silence of the house, until I heard him leave the bedroom at 2 a.m. I followed him downstairs, expecting to catch him on a late-night phone call or maybe eating leftovers. Instead, I watched him open the front door to a woman and a child, and what I heard next shattered my entire reality. Before I tell you how I destroyed his life, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. My name is Morgan, and I am 32 years old. I work as a chief marketing officer for a tech firm in Seattle, earning $240,000 a year. My husband Liam calls himself an entrepreneur, which is a fancy way of saying he has been unemployed for 3 years while I pay for everything. Our life looked perfect from the outside. What? We lived in a $1.2 million home that I bought before we got married, drove nice cars, and threw dinner parties where everyone complimented us on being a power couple. But behind closed doors, I was exhausted. Liam told me I was suffering from severe burnout. He was so attentive, so caring. Every night at 9 p.m. sharp, he would bring me a glass of water and a small blue pill. He said it was a high-grade magnesium supplement to help me sleep. And for 6 months I took it. I would fall into a deep, dreamless black hole and wake up groggy the next morning feeling like I had a hangover, even though I had not touched a drop of alcohol. That Tuesday started like any other, until I came home early and walked quietly toward the master bathroom. The door was cracked open, and I heard Liam whispering on the phone. The water was running in the sink, masking his voice, but I have always had sharp hearing. I stood frozen in the hallway, clutching my purse. "Dawn, not worry," he said, his voice low and cruel. "She will be out cold before 10. I gave her a double dose last night, and she was practically comatose. We have plenty of time." My stomach dropped. I backed away silently, my heart hammering against my ribs. Who was he talking to? And what did he mean by double dose? I went back downstairs and slammed the front door loudly, pretending I had just arrived. When I walked into the kitchen, Liam was there smiling that charming smile that had fooled me for 4 years. "Hey, babe, you are home early," he said, kissing my cheek. "You look tired. You should take your vitamin early tonight and get some rest." I looked at him. Really looked at him, and saw a stranger. But I forced a smile. "You are right," I said. "I am exhausted." That night the ritual was the same. He brought the water. He brought the blue pill. I put it in my mouth, took a sip of water, and deftly slid the pill under my tongue. I made a show of swallowing, tilting my head back. Liam watched me closely, his eyes tracking the movement of my throat. "Good girl," he said, smoothing my hair. "Sleep tight." I lay down and closed my eyes. I waited. The pill tasted bitter under my tongue, burning the soft tissue, but I did not move. I controlled my breathing, making it slow and rhythmic. 10 minutes passed, then 20. At 10:15 p.m., the bedroom door creaked open. I felt his presence by the bed. "Morgan," he whispered. I did not move. He clapped his hands loudly right next to my ear. I forced my body to remain limp. Then he did something that made my blood boil. He slapped my cheek, not playfully, hard. It stung, but I kept my jaw slack. He grabbed my wrist, lifted my arm high in the air, and let it drop. It hit the mattress with a heavy thud. "Out like a light," he muttered. "Sleep well, cash cow." I heard the rustle of fabric as he changed clothes. The scent of his expensive cologne, the one I bought him for Christmas, filled the room. Then I heard his footsteps fading down the hallway. I waited another 10 minutes to be safe. I spit the half-dissolved pill into a tissue and hid it inside my pillowcase. Then I slipped out of bed. My legs felt shaky, not from drugs, but from pure adrenaline. I crept to the landing and looked down into the foyer. The lights were on. Liam was at the front door. He opened it, and a woman walked in. She was not a stranger. My breath caught in my throat. It was Jessica, the ex-girlfriend he swore he had blocked 5 years ago. The woman he told me was crazy and obsessed with him, but she did not look crazy now. She looked comfortable, and she was not alone. A small boy, maybe 4 years old, ran past her into my living room. "Daddy," the boy shouted, "is this our new house yet?" "Shh, keep it down, buddy," Liam said, scooping the boy up. "Not yet, but soon. Jessica threw her coat onto my beige sofa, the sofa that cost $5,000 and that Liam knew I did not allow anyone to eat or drink on. She walked straight to my kitchen, opened the wine fridge, and pulled out a bottle of Camus that I had been saving for a special occasion. She poured herself a large glass and took a sip, looking around my living room with a possessive sneer. "I hate this decor," she said, running a hand over my mantel. "It is so cold. When we move in, I am redoing everything." I gripped the banister so hard my knuckles turned white. Move in. This was my house. My name was on the deed. I bought it 3 years before I even met Liam. "Do not worry, babe," Liam said, wrapping his arm around her waist. "Just a few more weeks. I spoke to the doctor again today. He agrees that her mental decline is rapid. Once she signs that power of attorney, we can commit her to the facility in Oregon. Then the house, the accounts, everything is ours. Commit me. They were planning to have me institutionalized." I felt bile rise in my throat. I watched as the little boy jumped up and down on my furniture with his shoes on. "Mommy said the crazy lady lives here," the boy said. "That is right," Liam laughed. "But the crazy lady is going away for a long, long vacation, and then you, me, and Mommy can be a real family." I realized then that the boy looked exactly like Liam. The same eyes, the same chin. He was 4. We had been married for 4 years. He had this entire other family the whole time. While I was working 60-hour weeks to pay the mortgage of $4,200 a month, while I was funding his failed startups, while I was paying off his student loans, he was playing house with Jessica. I wanted to run downstairs and scream. I wanted to smash the wine bottle over his head, but I stopped myself. I am a strategist. I deal in data and market trends and long-term goals. If I confronted them now, it would be my word against theirs. He would say I was hallucinating. He would use my outburst as proof of my mental instability. He had been gaslighting me for months, setting the stage for this very moment. I needed proof. I needed undeniable, concrete evidence. I crept back into the bedroom, my heart pounding a rhythm of cold fury. I lay in the dark, listening to the muffled sounds of their laughter from downstairs. I listened to my husband playing with his secret son in the home I paid for. I listened to his mistress drinking my wine, and I formulated a plan. I did not sleep a wink that night. The next morning, I heard Liam coming up the stairs at 6 a.m. I quickly closed my eyes. I heard him shower, washing away the scent of his betrayal. When I pretended to wake up an hour later, he was standing by the bed with a tray. Pancakes, fresh fruit, and coffee. "Good morning, Sleeping Beauty," he said, looking like the picture of a devoted husband. "You slept like a rock. I did not want to wake you." I sat up, fighting the urge to vomit. "I feel groggy," I said, rubbing my temples. "That vitamin is really strong. It is just magnesium, babe," he said smoothly. "You are just catching up on sleep debt. You have been working too hard." He sat on the edge of the bed and placed a hand on my knee. His touch made my skin crawl. "Speaking of work, I wanted to talk to you about the startup. Here it comes. The ask. We have a chance to upgrade our server capacity," he said, his eyes wide with fake excitement. "It is a game changer, Morgan, but I need a bridge loan, just until the investors come through next month." "How much?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. $15,000, he said. I did the math in my head. $15,000. That was exactly the cost of a luxury family vacation to Hawaii, or perhaps a down payment on a new car for Jessica. I looked at the man I had vowed to love and cherish. I looked at the man who had slapped my face while I was pretending to be unconscious. $15,000 is a lot, Liam, I said. I just paid the property taxes and the mortgage. Cash flow is a little tight this month. His face darkened instantly. The mask slipped just for a second. "Come on, Morgan," he said, his voice taking on a whiny, manipulative edge. "You make 20 grand a month. Do not act like we are poor. I am trying to build a future for us. Why do you always have to be so controlling with money? Do you not trust me?" I looked him dead in the eye. "It is not about trust, Liam. It is about being responsible. I need to review the budget before I transfer that kind of money." He stood up abruptly, the tray rattling. "You know what? Forget it. It is unbelievable. I am working my ass off to make this company a success, so you do not have to carry the burden alone, and you treat me like a child asking for allowance. You are so selfish sometimes, Morgan. You really are." He stormed out of the room, slamming the door. Selfish. He called me selfish. I sat there in the silence of my bedroom, the cold pancakes staring up at me. I pulled up my banking app on my phone. I looked at the transaction history. Mortgage paid by me, electric bill paid by me, grocery bill paid by me, his credit card bill paid by me. I scrolled back 2 years. I could not find a single deposit from Liam, not one. He had been bleeding me dry while plotting to lock me away. I got out of bed and walked to the mirror. I looked at myself. I looked tired. My skin was pale, and there were dark circles under my eyes from months of being drugged. But behind that exhaustion, I saw something else igniting. A spark. He thought I was a cash cow. He thought I was a broken burnout executive he could discard when he was done spending my money. He thought he was the smartest person in the room. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I had not called in years. "Hey, Andre," I said when my brother-in-law answered. "Morgan, is everything okay? You sound different." "I am not okay," I said, "but I am going to be. I need your help. I think Liam is trying to kill me, or at least ruin me, and I need you to help me destroy him first. Andre is a forensic accountant. He finds hidden money for a living, and more importantly, he hates Liam." "Meet me in an hour," Andre said. "Bring everything you have." I hung up the phone. I went into the bathroom and retrieved the half-dissolved blue pill from my pillowcase. I wrapped it carefully in a tissue and put it in my pocket. This was Exhibit A. I got dressed, putting on my sharpest blazer and my highest heels. I was not the victim here. I was the CEO of my own life, and I was about to execute the most hostile takeover my husband had ever seen. I walked downstairs. Liam was in the kitchen aggressively making espresso. He did not look at me. "I am going to the office," I said. "I will think about the money." He softened immediately. "Thanks, babe. I knew you would understand. It is for us. Everything I do is for us. I walked out the door without kissing him goodbye. As I backed my Audi out of the driveway, I looked up at the house. "My house. Enjoy it while you can, Liam," I whispered, "because your lease is about to expire." I drove to the coffee shop to meet Andre. My hands were gripping the steering wheel, but my mind was clear. The fog of the last 6 months was lifting. I was awake, and I was angry, but I would not let my anger make me sloppy. I would use it. I would sharpen it. Liam wanted a war. He had no idea he had just declared it on the wrong woman. I turned up the radio and sped onto the highway. The game had just begun. I drove to a small, nondescript coffee shop in Capitol Hill, 3 neighborhoods away from where I lived. I kept checking my rearview mirror every few seconds. Paranoia had become my new shadow. I half expected to see Liam's Range Rover following me, but the streets were clear. I pulled my coat tighter around myself and hurried inside. My sister Tara was already there. She was pacing back and forth near the corner booth, her face pale with worry. Sitting next to her, calm as a statue, was her husband, Andre. Andre is a forensic accountant. He is a 6'2" black man with a mind like a steel trap and a bullshit detector that had been pinging about Liam since the day we got married. He never liked Liam. He once told me at a barbecue that Liam had the eyes of a man who was constantly calculating the cost of everything in the room. I should have listened to him then. I slid into the booth opposite them. Tara immediately reached for my hand. Her grip was tight, bordering on painful. "You look terrible," she said, her voice shaking. "Morgan, what is going on? You sounded terrified on the phone." I took a deep breath. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the tissue containing the half-dissolved blue pill. I placed it in the center of the table. "He has been drugging me," I said. The words tasted like ash in my mouth for 6 months. He told me they were vitamins, but last night I pretended to swallow it. I stayed awake, and I saw him let another woman into our house. Tara gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Oh my God, Morgan!" Andre did not gasp. He did not look surprised. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the blue smudge on the tissue. "Who was the woman?" Andre asked. His voice was low, steady, and grounding. "Jessica," I whispered. Andre nodded slowly. The crazy ex. I knew he never cut her off. A guy like Liam needs a fan club. One woman is never enough for an ego that size. I told them everything. The child, the conversation about committing me to a facility, the plan to take power of attorney, the $15,000 ask this morning. By the time I finished, Tara was crying silent tears, but Andre was already in work mode. He pulled a pair of latex gloves from his jacket pocket. He always carried a go bag for work and carefully picked up the pill. I need to know exactly what this is, I said. Andre pulled out his phone and snapped a high-resolution photo of the pill fragments, focusing on a partial imprint still visible on the side. Then he made a call. He spoke in rapid-fire codes that I did not understand, then hung up. I am sending this to a contact at a private lab downtown, Andre said. I will drop the sample off in 20 minutes, but based on the color, the shape, and what you are describing about your symptoms, I have a pretty good idea of what this is. He looked me dead in the eye. Halcyon, he said. Triazolam. It is a sedative used for severe insomnia, but it is rarely prescribed anymore because the side effects are dangerous. It causes anterograde amnesia. That means you black out. You function, you walk, you talk, but your brain does not record new memories. The realization hit me like a physical blow. That explained everything. The lost keys, the missed meetings, the times I would wake up in the morning and Liam would tell me we had a conversation that I had absolutely no recollection of. He wasn't just gaslighting me with words. He was chemically erasing my mind. He made me think I was going crazy, I said, my voice trembling. He made me think I had early onset dementia. That is the point, Andre said grimly. If he can prove you are mentally incompetent, getting conservatorship is a walk in the park. He doesn't just want your money, Morgan. He wants total control. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. Just checking in on you, babe. Did you transfer the funds for the server yet? Love you. I stared at the screen, a wave of nausea rolling over me. I need to divorce him, I said. I need to go to the police right now and then file for divorce. I want him out of my house today. No, Andre said. His voice was sharp, cutting through my panic. I looked at him shocked. What do you mean, no? He is poisoning me. If you file for divorce today, Andre said, leaning in, you are playing right into his hands. Washington is a community property state. Everything you earned, everything you bought, and every asset that appreciated in value during the marriage is split 50-50. But he drugged me, I argued. Can you prove it in a way that stands up in family court by this afternoon? Andre countered. The police will take a report, sure, but Liam will say you are an addict. He will say you took the pills yourself. He will say you are hysterical, just like he has been telling everyone else. And while the investigation drags on for months, he will have access to your accounts. He will freeze your assets. He will fight you for alimony, claiming he has been a stay-at-home partner supporting your career. Tara wiped her eyes. He is right, Morgan. Liam is slippery. If you move too fast, he will destroy you financially before he goes down. So what do? I asked. Do I just go back there and let him poison me again? No, Andre said. We changed the game. We do not just want a divorce, Morgan. We want a criminal conviction. We want him leaving that marriage with nothing but a prison number. Andre pulled a notepad from his pocket and started writing. Here is the plan, he said. You go back home. You play the part. You are the tired, confused, loving wife. But you do not swallow another pill. We need to build a case that is so airtight, even his slimy lawyer cannot poke a hole in it. We need proof of intent to harm. We need proof of fraud. And we need proof of the affair. I shuddered at the thought of sleeping in the same bed with him again. I do not know if I can do that, Andre. You can, Andre said firmly, because you are smarter than him. He thinks you are a victim. He thinks you are weak. That is his biggest mistake. You are going to let him believe he is winning right up until the moment we close the trap. He tapped the table with his pen. I am going to dig into the finances. Andre continued. If he is supporting a second household, there is a paper trail. There is always a paper trail. I will find where he is hiding the money. I will find the credit cards he opened in your name. I will find the lease for Jessica's apartment. And once we have the financial forensic evidence combined with the toxicology report from this pill, we will not just sue him for divorce. We will hand him over to the district attorney on a silver platter." I looked at Andre, then at Tara. I saw the fear in my sister's eyes, but I also saw a fierce determination. And in Andre, I saw the cold, calculated resolve of a man who knew exactly how to hunt a predator. "Okay," I said. I took a deep breath, pushing the fear down and letting the anger take its place. "I will do it. I will go back." Andre nodded. "Good. But first, give me your phone. I need to install a mirror app so I can see everything he texts and everything he deletes. And Morgan, from this moment on, you are an actress. You are performing for your life." I handed him my phone. I watched him work his fingers flying across the screen. I thought about Liam's smug face when he asked for the money this morning. I thought about Jessica drinking my wine. "Let us catch him," I said. Andre handed the phone back to me. "We won't just catch him, Morgan. We are going to bury him." The next morning, Liam told me he had a high-stakes meeting with a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley. He checked his hair in the hallway mirror, straightened his tie, and gave me a kiss on the forehead. He said this investor was the key to everything, the big break that would finally launch his company into the stratosphere. I smiled and wished him luck, but as soon as his Range Rover disappeared around the corner, I picked up the phone. I knew exactly where he was going. He was going to pick up Jessica, and that gave me a 3-hour window to turn my home into a surveillance state. I did not call a regular security company. I called a specialist. Andre recommended a guy who usually installs equipment for private investigators or high-net-worth individuals who suspect corporate espionage. He arrived in an unmarked van 20 minutes later. He was quick, professional, and understood the assignment immediately. I needed eyes and ears in every common area of the house, but they had to be completely invisible. Liam considers himself tech-savvy, so standard nanny cams would not work. We started in the living room. The technician installed a pinhole camera inside the crystal chandelier that hung over the main seating area. It had a wide-angle lens that captured the entire room in 4K resolution. In the kitchen, he replaced the smoke detector with a replica that housed a microphone and a camera lens pointing directly at the island where we ate our meals. But the masterstroke was in the guest room, the room Liam had been promising to Jessica's son. There was a vintage teddy bear on the shelf, a gift my grandmother had given me. The technician carefully inserted a camera into its left eye. It was poetic justice. The symbol of my family history would be the thing to watch them plot my destruction. By the time Liam came home at 5 p.m., the house looked exactly the same, but the energy had shifted. The walls were listening. The lights were watching. I felt a surge of power as he walked through the door. He looked disheveled. His tie loosened a faint smudge of lipstick on his collar that he had missed. The meeting was brutal, he lied, throwing his keys on the counter. "These investors want blood, Morgan. They want me to put up more of my own capital before they match it." I nodded sympathetically, handing him a beer. "That sounds stressful, honey." "It is," he sighed. "But I think I convinced them. I just need to show them I am all in." He was setting the stage for another ask, another demand for money. But I played along. I made dinner. I listened to his fabricated stories about term sheets and equity splits. I played the part of the supportive, oblivious wife perfectly. Then came the night ritual. At 9 p.m., he brought the water and the blue pill. "You need this," he said, his voice dripping with fake concern. "You were tossing and turning last night." I took the pill. I did the tongue maneuver. I swallowed the water. I lay down. This time staying awake was agonizing. My body was exhausted from the stress, from the adrenaline of the day. I wanted to sleep. I wanted to shut down and forget that my husband was a monster. But I forced my eyes to stay open in the dark. I pinched the skin of my thigh under the covers to keep myself alert. At 10 p.m., Liam did his check. He shook my shoulder. He whispered my name. When I did not respond, he let out a sigh of relief. Finally, he muttered. He left the room, closing the door until it clicked. I waited 5 seconds. Then I pulled my phone out from under my pillow. Andre had installed an app that linked to the hidden cameras. I put in my earbuds and opened the live feed. The screen illuminated my face in the darkness of the bedroom. I selected the camera view for the living room. The picture was crystal clear. I saw Liam walking around tidying up the throw pillows. He checked his reflection in the mirror again. Then the front door opened. I expected Jessica. I expected the child. But when the figure stepped into the light of the chandelier, my breath hitched in my throat. It was not just Jessica. It was Brenda, my mother-in-law, the woman who had hugged me at my wedding, the woman I had spent Thanksgiving with every year, the woman whose medical bills I had paid 2 years ago when she needed knee surgery. She walked into my house with a look of disdain on her face, followed closely by Jessica. Brenda sat down on my sofa, the same sofa Jessica had thrown her coat on the night before. She looked around the room with a critical eye. "It smells like her in here," Brenda said, wrinkling her nose, "like that cheap vanilla perfume she wears." "It is Chanel, Mom," Liam said, pouring wine for both of them. "And do not worry, she is out cold. I gave her a heavy dose. She won't wake up until noon tomorrow." Jessica sat next to Brenda, looking comfortable and smug. She patted Brenda's hand. "You are so patient, Brenda," Jessica said. "I do not know how you stand her. She is so dull." Brenda scoffed. She took a sip of wine. "My wine. I stand her because she pays the bills, Jessica. Look at this place. It is nice. Tacky art, but good bones. Once we get rid of her, you can redecorate however you want." I watched on my phone screen, my hand trembling so hard the image shook. They were talking about me like I was a tenant they were evicting, not the owner of the house, not the woman who had supported them. Liam sat on the coffee table facing them. He looked like he was holding court. So Liam said, "I talked to the lawyer today. The paperwork is almost ready." Brenda leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with malice. She pointed a manicured finger at the large wedding photo of Liam and me that hung above the fireplace. "I hate that picture," she hissed. "Look at her. She looks so smug. She thinks she is better than us because she has a fancy job and a degree. She never respected you, Liam. She always made you feel small." "She is just a wallet," Mom Liam said dismissively. "A wallet with a pulse." But not for long. That is when Brenda delivered the line that turned my blood to ice. "You just need to hold on a little longer, son," Brenda said. "Con ko chu dun con morgan tham tu thang nua." Just 2 more months. I spoke to Dr. Evans again. He is on board. He says with the amount of medication you are giving her, the symptoms will mimic rapid cognitive decline perfectly. My heart stopped. Dr. Evans, that was the psychiatrist Liam had recommended to me, the one who prescribed the sleeping pills. He was in on it. Brenda continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that the high-definition microphone picked up perfectly. "Once Dr. Evans confirms she has early-onset dementia caused by severe workplace stress, we will file the motion. You will petition the court for emergency guardianship." She paused, taking a long sip of wine, savoring the plan. "A conservatorship." "Liam," she said, smiling a smile that looked demonic in the pale light, "just like Britney Spears. You will have legal control over her medical decisions, her finances, and her estate. She won't be able to spend a dime without your permission. She won't even be able to hire a lawyer to fight it because you will control her bank accounts." Liam laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound. "And then we put her in that facility in Oregon," he said. "The one with the long-term care unit." "Exactly," Brenda said. "And you, me, and Jessica move in here. We sell her other assets. We live the life we deserve. You just have to keep dosing her for 60 more days. Can you do that?" Liam looked at the ceiling right at the bedroom where I lay shivering under the covers. "I would dose her for 60 years if it meant I never had to hear her talk about her budget again," he said. I closed the app. I could not watch anymore. I lay in the dark, tears streaming down my face into my ears. It wasn't just greed. It wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy. My husband, his mother, his mistress, and my doctor were all working together to erase me. They wanted to strip me of my mind, my freedom, and my life. I felt a primal fear, the kind that makes you want to run and hide. But then I looked at the phone in my hand. I had the recording. It was saved to the cloud. Andre had a copy instantly. They gave me a timeline. 60 days, 2 months. They thought they had time. They thought I was a fading ghost. But they had just handed me the weapon I needed to execute them. I wiped my face. I controlled my breathing. I waited for the morning. Because when the sun came up, I wasn't going to be the victim they were describing. I was going to be the villain of their story, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. The house was finally silent. Brenda and Jessica had left hours ago, stumbling out the door with bottles of my wine tucked under their arms. Liam was upstairs in our bed, snoring with the heavy, arrogant rhythm of a man who believes he has already won. He hadn't even bothered to wash the lipstick off his collar. He thought I was comatose, drifting in a chemically induced fog, but I was wide awake. I was running on pure cold rage. I slipped out of the guest room where I had started sleeping under the pretense of not disturbing his rest, and crept down the hallway to his home office. My bare feet made no sound on the hardwood floors. I entered the room and closed the door softly, engaging the lock with a nearly silent click. I sat at his desk and opened his MacBook. The screen flared to life, casting a ghostly blue glow over my hands. I needed his password. Liam was not a complex man, despite his pretensions of genius. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried the name of his failed startup. Incorrect. Then I typed in the name of the son he had hidden from me for 4 years. Leo 2019. The lock screen vanished. I was in. I immediately opened the secure messaging app Andre had installed on my phone earlier that day and typed 2 words. I'm in. Andre responded instantly. Launch the remote desktop tool. I am taking over. I clicked the icon Andre had guided me to install during our brief window of opportunity that morning. A second later, the cursor on the screen began to move on its own. It was ghostly and terrifying, but also deeply reassuring. Andre was here. I wasn't doing this alone. Watch and learn, Morgan Andre's voice came through my earbud. Let's see where the money is really going. Windows began flying open faster than I could read them. Andre was digging into the hidden partitions of the hard drive, accessing cached banking data and encrypted files. For a few minutes, the only sound was the whir of the laptop fan and my own breathing. Got him, Andre whispered. Look at the screen. A spreadsheet popped up. It was a list of credit card accounts. My eyes scanned the column of numbers and my stomach turned. There were 3 cards listed that I had never applied for. A Chase Sapphire Reserve, an American Express Platinum, and a Discover card. All of them were opened in my name. All of them used my social security number. I looked at the balances. $14,000 on the Amex, $22,000 on the Chase, $22,000 on the Discover. Total debt $58,000, $58,000. I covered my mouth to stifle a gasp. He hadn't just been spending my income. He had been leveraging my credit score to fund a lifestyle I didn't even know he was living. I scrolled through the transaction history. It was a catalog of betrayal. Dinners at steakhouses I had never been to, jewelry stores, designer boutiques, weekend stays at the Four Seasons. He bought her a Cartier bracelet last month, I whispered, seeing a charge for $6,000. He told me he couldn't afford to get me anything for our anniversary because cash was tight. Keep looking, Andre said grimly. It gets worse. He opened another window. This one showed monthly recurring payments from what Liam called his business operating account. Every month on the 1st, there was a transfer of $3,500 to a company called Skyline Property Management. I know that building, I said, recognizing the routing code Andre highlighted. It is the luxury high-rise downtown, the one with the rooftop pool. That is where Jessica lives, Andre confirmed. You are paying her rent, Morgan. You have been paying her rent for 2 years. That is $84,000 of your money funneling straight into a love nest for your husband and his mistress. I felt a wave of dizziness. I worked 60-hour weeks. I missed birthdays, holidays, and family events to secure bonuses and promotions. I drove a 4-year-old car to be practical. And all that time I was funding a penthouse lifestyle for the woman who mocked my furniture and drank my wine. But that isn't the smoking gun, Andre said. His voice had lost its professional detachment. It sounded tight, angry. Check the folder on the desktop labeled Project Phoenix. I clicked the folder. Inside were several PDF documents. I opened the first one. Petition for appointment of conservator. I read the legal jargon, my blood turning to ice. It was a draft filing for the King County Superior Court. The petitioner was Liam. The proposed conservatee was me. In the section describing the reason for the request, Liam had written that I was suffering from rapid onset psychosis and severe cognitive decline. He claimed I was a danger to myself, that I had been found wandering the streets at night, that I was unable to manage my own finances, and that I had become violent. Lies. Every single word was a lie. But then I scrolled to the bottom of the document. There was an attached medical evaluation. It was signed by Dr. Evans. Patient exhibits classic signs of early onset dementia exacerbated by stress, the evaluation read. Evaluation. Patient is non-compliant with medication and lacks the capacity to make informed medical or financial decisions. Immediate intervention is recommended for her safety. It was signed, dated 3 days ago. He has already prepped the paperwork, Andre said. He was just waiting for you to have a public breakdown to file it. This isn't just theft, Morgan. This is a conspiracy to strip you of your human rights. If he files this and the judge believes Dr. Evans, you lose everything. You lose the right to hire a lawyer. You lose access to your bank accounts. You lose the right to decide where you live. He becomes your owner. I stared at the signature. Dr. Evans, the man I had cried to about my insomnia, the man who had nodded sympathetically and prescribed the blue pills. He was part of it. He was writing a death sentence for my autonomy. Download it, Andre commanded. Download everything. The credit card statements, the rent checks, the medical evaluation. This is the nail in his coffin. This proves premeditation. It proves fraud. It proves he isn't just a bad husband. He is a criminal predator. I plugged in the USB drive I had brought with me. My hand was shaking so badly it took me 2 tries to find the port. I dragged the files over. One by one, the evidence of his cruelty copied onto the drive. $58,000 in debt, $3,500 a month in rent for his mistress, and a legal document designed to enslave me. I ejected the drive and closed the laptop. I sat there in the dark office for a moment, clutching the small piece of metal in my hand. It felt heavy, like it contained the weight of my entire marriage. Morgan, Andre said softly, "Get out of there. Go back to bed. We have what we need." I stood up. My legs felt steady now. The shock had passed, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. Liam wanted to play games with my sanity. He wanted to paint me as a crazy, incompetent woman who needed a keeper. I walked back to the guest room. I passed the master bedroom where he slept oblivious and entitled. I paused at the door, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. Sleep well, Liam, I thought, because when you wake up, you won't be the petitioner. You will be the defendant. I went into my room and hid the USB drive inside the lining of my winter coat in the back of the closet. Then I lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. I was already dreaming of the moment the handcuffs would click around his wrists. The financial dig was over. Now the burial could begin. The next 3 days were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Andre told me that for the trap to work, I had to let Liam believe his plan was succeeding. I had to let him break me, or at least I had to let him think he was breaking me. It is a strange thing to wake up every morning and put on a mask of confusion and fragility when your mind is sharper than it has ever been. I stopped taking the blue pills, entirely hiding them in the potted plant in the hallway, but I continued to act groggy, stumbling into walls and slurring my words over breakfast. Liam was escalating his tactics. He wasn't just content with drugging me anymore. He needed concrete evidence of my incompetence to show the court. He needed witnesses to see me failing. It started on a Tuesday morning. I was dressed in my charcoal power suit, ready for a quarterly review with my team. I reached for my car keys in the crystal bowl by the door, the place I had put them every single day for 6 years. The bowl was empty. I frowned, checking my pockets. Nothing. I checked my purse. Nothing. A spike of genuine panic hit me, not because I was crazy, but because I hated being late. I tore through the living room, lifting cushions, checking the kitchen counters. Liam walked in, sipping his coffee, looking the picture of relaxation. "What is wrong?" he asked, his voice calm and level. "I cannot find my keys," I said, frustration bleeding into my voice. "I put them in the bowl last night. I know I did." Liam took a sip of coffee and shook his head with a pitying smile. "Morgan, you didn't put them in the bowl. You walked right past the bowl. I watched you. You were stumbling around like a zombie." "I did not." I snapped, then caught myself. "I had to play the part. I don't remember that." He sighed, putting his mug down. "I will help you look." He made a show of checking the obvious places. Then he walked into the kitchen. A moment later, he called out, "Honey, come here." I walked into the kitchen. Liam was standing by the trash compactor. He had the lid open. He reached in and pulled out my Audi key fob. It was covered in wet coffee grounds. He held it up by the ring, looking at me with sad, disappointed eyes. "You threw them away, Morgan," he said softly. "They were right on top of the garbage." I stared at the keys. I knew for a fact I hadn't done that. I had reviewed the footage from the kitchen camera on my phone 10 minutes ago while I was in the bathroom. I had watched him take the keys from the bowl at 2 a.m. and drop them in the trash. But I couldn't say that. I don't understand, I stammered, letting my shoulders slump. Why would I do that? He walked over and put his hands on my shoulders, ignoring the coffee grounds dripping onto my suit. "Because you are not well, babe. You are forgetting things. Basic things. Yesterday, you left the stove on. Today, you are throwing your car keys in the trash. I am really worried about you." I let him pull me into a hug. I held my breath so I wouldn't scream. "I am sorry," I whispered into his chest. "I feel so scattered." "Go to work," he said, kissing the top of my head. "Just drive carefully, please." I took the keys and left. As I drove to the office, I gripped the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. He was building a narrative. He was creating a series of incidents that he could recount to Dr. Evans, who would then document them as symptoms of my decline. But the keys were just the warm-up act. The main event happened on Thursday. I had a meeting with the Nexus Group, our biggest client. It was a deal worth $3 million in annual revenue, and I was the lead on the account. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. I had prepared for weeks. My slide deck was perfect. My projections were flawless. I arrived at the office early, buried myself in work, and at 1:45 p.m., I walked to the main conference room. I opened the door ready to set up. The room was empty. I checked my watch. 1:45 p.m. Maybe I was too early. I waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. At 2:05 p.m., I checked my email. There was nothing. I opened my Outlook calendar on my phone. My blood ran cold. The calendar entry for the Nexus Group meeting wasn't at 2 p.m. anymore. It was listed for 10 a.m. that morning. I stared at the screen. I knew it was 2 p.m. I had written it down in my physical planner. I had confirmed it with my assistant yesterday. I ran to my assistant's desk. Jessica, not the mistress, my actual assistant, looked up, startled. "Where is the Nexus team?" I asked, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. She looked at me with wide eyes. "Morgan, they left hours ago. You didn't show up. We waited for 30 minutes. I called you 5 times. You didn't answer." I pulled out my phone. There were no missed calls. Then I noticed the small icon in the corner, Do Not Disturb. I never used Do Not Disturb. "I missed the meeting," I whispered. My boss David walked out of his office. He looked furious. "Morgan, in my office. Now." I spent the next 20 minutes getting chewed out. David told me the client was insulted. He said I was unreliable. He asked if I was having substance abuse issues because I looked tired and disheveled. I apologized profusely. I told him it was a technical glitch, but as I walked back to my desk, I opened the audit log on my calendar app. The meeting time had been changed at 3:14 a.m. from a device labeled Morgan's iPad. My iPad was at home, on my nightstand, next to the husband who knew my passcode because I trusted him. I went home that night defeated. I didn't have to act. I was genuinely shaken. Not because I thought I was crazy, but because I realized how easily he could dismantle my professional reputation. He wasn't just attacking my mind, he was attacking my livelihood. I walked into the house and dropped my bag on the floor. Liam was waiting in the living room. He had a fire going. He had dimmed the lights. He looked like the perfect supportive partner. He saw my face and immediately stood up. "What happened?" he asked. "I missed the Nexus meeting," I said, sinking onto the sofa. "I thought it was at 2. It was at 10. David screamed at me. I might lose the account." Liam sat next to me and took my cold hands in his. He didn't look surprised. He looked vindicated. "Oh, Morgan," he said softly, a tone of tragic resignation in his voice. "This is what I was afraid of." "What do you mean?" I asked, looking at him through tear-filled eyes. "Babe, look at you," he said, stroking my cheek. "You are falling apart. First the keys in the trash. Now missing the biggest meeting of your career. You are not capable of handling this stress anymore. Your brain is shutting down." I pulled my hands away, feigning defensiveness. "I just made a mistake, Liam. It happens." "It is not just a mistake," he said firmly. "It is a pattern, and it is dangerous. What if you forget how to drive while you are on the freeway? What if you leave the gas on and burn the house down?" He paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the room. Then he delivered the line that I knew was coming, the line that was the linchpin of his entire plan. "I think you need to quit Morgan." I looked up at him. "Quit my job?" "Yes," he said, nodding earnestly. "You need to resign. We have some savings. I can take care of us. My company is about to take off. You should stay home, rest, and let me look after you. Let Dr. Evans help you. You need to focus on healing." I looked at the man who had stolen $58,000 from me, the man who had sabotaged my calendar while I slept. He wanted me to quit my job so I would lose my income, lose my connection to the outside world, and become entirely dependent on him. Once I was unemployed and sick, the conservatorship would be a guarantee. I knew the truth, but I had to give him what he wanted. I had to make him feel safe. "Maybe you are right," I whispered, letting a tear roll down my cheek. I don't feel like myself. I am scared, Liam." He pulled me into his arms. I felt his heartbeat against my ear. It was slow, steady, the heartbeat of a sociopath. "Shh, it is okay," he soothed, stroking my hair. "I am here. I will take care of everything. You just need to trust me." I closed my eyes. "I trust you." I lied. I felt him smile against the top of my head. He thought he had broken me. He thought I was ready to sign my life away. "Tomorrow," he said. "You should email David tomorrow and tell him you are taking a medical leave. It is the best thing for everyone." "Okay," I said. "I will do it tomorrow." I pulled away and stood up. "I'm going to take a bath," I said. "I need to wash this day off." "Take your time," he said. "I will bring you your vitamin." I walked up the stairs, my legs feeling heavy. He had humiliated me. He had gaslit me. He had tried to take the one thing that belonged entirely to me, my career. But as I turned on the tap in the tub, drowning out the sound of the house, I looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't the broken woman he saw downstairs. I was a woman who had just recorded the entire conversation on the wire Andre had taped to my chest. He had just admitted to knowing about my memory loss in details he could only know if he was causing them. He had coerced me to quit my job. It was all going into the file. I poured a glass of water from the tap. I waited for him to bring the blue pill. I would take it. I would hide it. And then tomorrow I wouldn't resign. Tomorrow I would spring the trap. Saturday arrived with a suffocating tension that filled every corner of my home. It was Liam's 35th birthday, and typically I would have planned a sleek, intimate dinner at his favorite steakhouse downtown. But this year, Brenda insisted on hosting a party at our house. She claimed it was because I was too fragile to go out, too unstable to handle a public setting. The reality was that she wanted to parade her control over my sanctuary in front of their entire extended family. By 6 p.m., my living room was filled with people who looked at me with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Liam had clearly done a thorough job of spreading the narrative of my mental decline. I stood in the kitchen watching Brenda rearrange my spice rack. She was moving everything, claiming my organization system made no sense, a subtle power play to show she was now the matriarch of this domain. "Why don't you go sit down, Morgan?" she said, not looking at me. "You are just getting in the way. You look like you are about to faint." I wasn't about to faint. I was about to scream, but I obeyed. I walked into the living room clutching a glass of sparkling water because I didn't trust any open container in this house anymore. Liam was holding court by the fireplace, laughing loudly at a joke I didn't hear. He looked vibrant, feeding off the attention, looking every inch the successful entrepreneur he pretended to be. Then the doorbell rang. Liam's face lit up in a way that made my stomach turn. "I will get it," he announced, practically sprinting to the door. He opened it, and a hush fell over the room as Jessica walked in. She wasn't hiding in the shadows tonight. She was stepping into the spotlight. Liam turned to the room, his arm hovering protectively near the small of her back. "Everyone, I want you to meet Jessica," he said, beaming. "She is a distant cousin of mine from Chicago. She just moved to Seattle for work, so please, make her feel welcome." A cousin. The audacity was breathtaking. I watched from the corner, my eyes narrowing. Jessica was radiant, holding a bottle of expensive champagne. But it wasn't her smile that froze the blood in my veins. It was what she was wearing. She was wearing my dress. It was an emerald green silk slip dress that I had bought in Paris 3 years ago. I had worn it exactly once on our first anniversary. It had been hanging in the back of my closet inside a garment bag. For her to be wearing it meant she had been in my closet rifling through my most personal belongings while I lay unconscious in the next room. It fit her perfectly. It was a violation so intimate, so brazen, that for a moment I actually felt dizzy. I watched her circulate the room, charming Liam's aunts and uncles. She laughed at their jokes, touched their arms, and acted like the perfect addition to the family. Brenda rushed over to her, hugging her warmly, a stark contrast to the cold dismissal she had shown me in the kitchen. "Oh, Jessica, you look stunning!" Brenda gushed loud enough for me to hear. "That color is perfect on you." I took a deep breath. I remembered Andre's instructions. I had to play the part. I had to be the gracious, confused, fading wife. I walked over to them. My legs felt heavy, but I forced a smile onto my face. "Hi," I said, my voice soft. "I am Morgan, Liam's wife." Jessica turned to me. Up close, her eyes were predatory. She looked me up and down, lingering on my simple gray sweater and slacks, an outfit I had chosen because it made me look smaller, less threatening. "Nice to meet you, Morgan," she said. Her voice was syrupy sweet, but her eyes were cold. "Liam has told me so much about you." I looked at the dress. I reached out and touched the silk fabric on her arm. "That is a beautiful dress," I said. It looks so familiar." The room went quiet. Liam stiffened. Brenda glared at me, ready to intervene if I caused a scene. Jessica didn't flinch. She laughed, a light tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. "Oh, this old thing," she said, smoothing the fabric over her hips. "I picked it up at a vintage shop in Capitol Hill. I guess I just have an eye for quality. Lies. Pure, unadulterated lies." But she wasn't done. She leaned in closer, her perfume, my perfume, wafting over me. "Thank you for the compliment," though she continued raising her voice slightly so the surrounding guests could hear. "You are sweet. But honestly, Morgan, you look exhausted. Are you okay? You look so frail. I have been having trouble sleeping," I stammered, looking at the floor. "It shows," Jessica said, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. "You know, my mother always said that a woman needs to take care of herself if she wants to keep her home happy. Men need vitality, Morgan. If you let yourself go well, you can't blame them for looking for energy elsewhere." It was a direct hit. She was mocking me, telling me to my face that she was replacing me because I was too weak, too old, too tired. Brenda let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, Jessica, you are terrible. But you are right. Morgan used to be so put together. Now look at her. It is tragic, really." Liam chuckled, shaking his head as if to say, "What can I do?" "She is trying, Mom," Liam said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "She is just going through a rough patch." The family laughed. It was a ripple of amusement at my expense. They saw a pathetic, disheveled woman being schooled on femininity by the vibrant, beautiful cousin. I stood there humiliated, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. I wanted to tear the dress off her body. I wanted to scream that she was a thief and a mistress, but I didn't. I lowered my head. "You are right," I whispered. I need to sit down." I turned away, acting defeated. As I walked toward the hallway, escaping their judgment, a hand gripped my elbow. I flinched, but when I looked up, I saw Andre. He had arrived quietly. He wasn't drinking. He wasn't smiling. He was wearing a dark suit, standing like a sentinel against the wall. He looked at the room full of people who were laughing at my pain, and his jaw was set in a hard line. He leaned down, pretending to offer me a napkin. "Easy, Morgan," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the music. "Breathe. I can't do this, Andre," I whispered back, my voice trembling with real rage. "She is wearing my dress, my Paris dress." "I know," Andre said. "I saw it the second she walked in." He pulled his phone out of his pocket and angled the screen toward me so only I could see. It was a video. He had been recording from the moment the doorbell rang. The footage was clear. It showed Jessica walking in the dress shimmering under the lights. It captured the conversation. It captured her lie about the vintage shop. It captured the cruelty of her insult. "I got it all," Andre whispered. "And I have the receipt for that dress on your credit card statement from 3 years ago. It is proof of theft, Morgan. It is proof she has access to your home and your personal property." He squeezed my arm. "Let them laugh," he said. "Let them think they have won. Every time she opens her mouth, she is digging her own grave. Go upstairs, lock the door. I will stay here and make sure they don't loot the rest of the house." I looked at him, feeling a surge of gratitude that nearly brought me to my knees. I wasn't alone. I had a witness. I walked up the stairs, leaving the party behind. I could still hear Jessica's laughter floating up from the living room. It sounded like a victory cry. She thought she had claimed my territory. She thought wearing my skin, my clothes, my life made it hers. But as I reached the landing, I looked down one last time. I saw Andre tracking her with his eyes cool and calculating. The dress was evidence. The insult was motive. The humiliation was fuel. I went into the bedroom and locked the door. I didn't cry this time. I walked to the closet and looked at the empty hanger where the green dress used to be. Keep it, Jessica, I thought. Wear it to court, because that is the only place you are going to be going in it. Monday was the day the game changed. It shifted from a story about a greedy husband trying to steal my money to a story about a man trying to end my life. I had left work at 2 p.m. telling my team I had a migraine. It was a half-truth. My head was pounding, but it was from the stress of living with a predator. I parked my car down the street, not wanting the sound of the engine to alert him. I wanted to catch him in his natural habitat, unguarded and arrogant. I let myself in through the side door near the laundry room. The house was quiet, disturbingly so. I expected to find him watching TV or napping, the usual activities of a man who claimed to be building an empire, but spent his days spending my paycheck. Instead, I heard a low, rhythmic scratching sound coming from the dining room. I took off my shoes and moved across the hardwood floor in my socks. The dining room table was covered in papers. Liam was sitting there, his back to me, hunched over a document with intense concentration. He had a pen in his hand, and he was writing something, then pausing, then writing again. I moved closer, hiding behind the pillar that separated the hallway from the dining area. I peered around the edge. He had a sheet of tracing paper over a document. He was tracing a signature. My signature. I squinted to see what lay beneath his hand. It was a thick packet of paperwork with a blue header. I recognized the logo immediately. It was my life insurance policy. I had taken out the policy 5 years ago before I even met him. It was a standard term life policy with a payout of $500,000. The beneficiary was currently my sister Tara. I had never changed it because deep down, I suppose I never fully trusted him with my mortality. But there he was, methodically forging my signature on a change of beneficiary form. He was removing Tara's name and replacing it with his own. And right next to that form was another one, a request for an accelerated death benefit claim. My breath caught in my throat. Accelerated death benefits are usually reserved for people with terminal illnesses. Why would he be filing that? Then his phone rang. He didn't pick it up. He put it on speaker and kept tracing. "Hey, baby," he said. His voice was light, cheerful. It was Jessica. "Did you do it?" she asked. Her voice sounded tinny and impatient through the speaker. "Did you sign the papers?" "Working on it right now," Liam said, admiring his handiwork. "I have almost mastered her loop on the M. It is tricky, but the clerk at the insurance office won't look twice." "Are you sure this is going to work, Liam?" Jessica asked. "I mean, $500,000 is nice, but is it enough? The house is worth more." "The house takes time to sell," Liam said, sounding like he was explaining simple math to a child. "Probate court takes months, but insurance pays out fast, especially if the cause of death is accidental." I froze. My blood stopped moving in my veins. "Accidental," Jessica repeated. "You said it was going to look like a medical issue, like her brain just gave out." "Plans change," Liam said. He put the pen down and leaned back, stretching his arms. "I talked to Dr. Evans. He said that with the amount of halcyon she has in her system, her coordination is shot. If she were to say take a few too many pills one night because she was confused and then maybe slip in the bathtub, well, it would be a tragic accident. A stressed-out executive over-medicated slipping away in her sleep. He laughed. It was a short, sharp sound that echoed in the silent house. No autopsy, no investigation, just a grieving husband and a big fat check. Jessica giggled. "You are bad, Liam. So bad." "I am efficient," he corrected. "And besides, I promised you that G-Wagon, didn't I? The matte black one with the red leather interior. This 500 grand covers the car, pays off your student loans, and gives us enough cash to party in Tulum while the lawyers sort out the house. I promise, baby. By next Friday, the G-Wagon is yours. And Morgan will be history." I clamped my hand over my mouth to stop the scream that was fighting to get out. Tears pricked my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of pure, unadulterated horror. He wasn't just trying to lock me away. He wasn't just trying to steal my savings. He was planning to kill me. He was going to overdose me, drown me in my own bathtub, and use the money to buy a luxury SUV for his mistress. My life was worth a car to him. My existence was just an obstacle between him and a vacation in Mexico. I looked at the man I had married, the man I had shared a bed with. I realized I didn't know him at all. I was living with a sociopath who viewed human beings as line items on a spreadsheet. I needed to leave. I needed to run out the door and never come back. But if I did that, he would know. He would know I saw him. He might get desperate. He might attack me right here in the hallway. And more importantly, if I ran now, he might get away with it. Attempted fraud is hard to prove without the documents. Conspiracy to commit murder is even harder if it is just hearsay. I needed those papers. I watched him stack the forms neatly. He put them in a manila envelope. "I'm going to drop these in the mail tomorrow," he told Jessica. "Then I will start upping her dosage tonight. By the weekend, she will be so out of it she won't even know what hit her." "Perfect," Jessica cooed. "I love you, Liam. Love you too, babe. See you later." He hung up. He stood up and stretched again, then walked toward the kitchen to get a drink. This was my chance. I moved like a ghost. I waited until I heard the refrigerator door open. Then I slipped out the side door, closing it silently behind me. I ran to my car, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I didn't start the engine until I had coasted halfway down the block. I drove 2 streets over and pulled into a parking lot behind a grocery store. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't grip the steering wheel. I hyperventilated for a full minute, staring at the gray dashboard, trying to process the reality that my husband was actively plotting my murder. The G-Wagon, the bathtub, the insurance. He was going to kill me for $500,000. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call the police. Not yet. The police would come take a report, maybe arrest him for forgery if I was lucky, but he would make bail. He would spin a story. He would say I was crazy. No, I needed something final. I needed the nuclear option. I dialed Andre. "Pick up," I whispered. "Pick up, pick up," Morgan Andre answered. "What is it?" "He is going to kill me," I said, my voice sounding strangely calm, detached. "He just forged my signature on a $500,000 life insurance policy. He is going to overdose me and drown me in the bathtub so he can buy Jessica a Mercedes G-Wagon." There was a silence on the other end of the line, a heavy, dangerous silence. "Where are you?" Andre asked. "I am in the Safeway parking lot. I have the audio recording from the wire you gave me. I heard it all, Andre. Every word." "Okay," Andre said. "Listen to me. The game has changed. We are done waiting. We are done collecting evidence. We have enough to bury him under the jail for the rest of his natural life." "I know," I said. "I want to end this. Tonight." "No," Andre said. "Not tonight. He expects you to be groggy tonight. If you go home and confront him, you are putting yourself in a room with a killer who thinks he has nothing to lose." "So what do I do?" I asked. "I can't sleep in that house, Andre. You are going to go back," Andre said. "You are going to tell him you feel sick. You are going to tell him you want to sign the power of attorney papers tomorrow because you can't handle the stress anymore. You are going to give him exactly what he wants. You are going to lure him into a false sense of victory. And then Andre continued, his voice cold as steel. "Tomorrow, when he brings the notary and his mother and his mistress to watch you sign your life away, we are going to drop the hammer. I will have the police waiting in the next room. We will let him put the pen in your hand. We will let him commit the crime in front of witnesses. And then we will take him down." I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide. But the fear was receding, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. "He wants to buy a G-Wagon with my life," I said. "Let him dream about it for one more night," Andre said. "Tomorrow the only thing he is going to be riding in is the back of a squad car." I hung up the phone. I wiped my face. I checked my makeup. I put the car in drive and headed back to the house. I was going back into the lion's den. I was going to sleep one more night under the same roof as the man who wanted me dead. But I wasn't afraid anymore, because I knew something he didn't. I knew that his timeline had just run out. He thought he had until the weekend. I knew he only had until tomorrow morning. I drove home ready to play the performance of a lifetime. I drove home from the grocery store with the knowledge that my husband wanted to kill me sitting heavy in my chest. It was a physical weight, like I had swallowed a stone. But strangely, the panic was gone. It had been replaced by a cold, clinical performance mode. I was no longer Morgan the wife. I was Morgan the asset, the obstacle, the target. And tonight, I was going to be the decoy. I pulled into the driveway and sat in the car for a moment. I messed up my hair, pulling strands loose from my bun, so I looked disheveled. I rubbed my eyes hard with the heels of my hands until they were red and puffy. I practiced my breathing, making it shallow and uneven. Then I walked inside. Liam was in the kitchen eating a sandwich. He looked up, his eyes scanning my face for signs of suspicion. He was probably wondering if I had seen him with the insurance papers. "Where have you been?" he asked, his voice casual, but his eyes alert. I let out a sob, a loud, ragged sound that came from my diaphragm. I dropped my purse on the floor, letting the contents spill out. "I can't do this anymore, Liam," I cried, leaning against the doorframe for support. I almost hit a pedestrian. I was driving and suddenly I didn't know where I was. I panicked. I think I blacked out. Liam put his sandwich down. He moved toward me, not with concern, but with the focused intensity of a predator seeing a limping gazelle. "Shh, it is okay," he said, guiding me to a chair. "Sit down. Breathe." I sat, burying my face in my hands. "I am dangerous, Liam. You were right. You were right about everything. My brain is broken. I'm going to hurt someone. I am going to hurt myself." He knelt in front of me, placing his hands on my knees. I could feel the excitement radiating off him. This was the moment he had been grooming me for. "I tried to tell you, babe," he said, his voice dropping to that soothing, manipulative register. "You are sick. It is not your fault. It is the stress. It is the pressure. You need to let go." I nodded frantically, tears streaming down my face. "I want to. I want to let go. I want to go to that facility in Oregon you talked about, the one with the gardens. I just want to sleep, Liam. I just want to feel safe again." He squeezed my knees. "You can. I can make that happen. We can get you admitted this weekend." I looked up at him, making my eyes wide and desperate. "But I need you to handle everything I said. I can't look at another bill. I can't look at another contract. I want to sign the power of attorney. I want to give you control. Complete control." For a second, I thought he was going to smile. The corners of his mouth twitched. His eyes lit up with a greed so pure it was almost blinding. He had won. In his mind, he had broken the CEO, the breadwinner, the strong woman who intimidated him. "I think that is a very wise decision, Morgan," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "I will take care of everything. You won't have to worry about a single dime ever again." I took a deep breath, wiping my nose with my sleeve. "Can we do it soon?" I asked. "We can do it tomorrow," he said quickly. "I will call the lawyer. We can have the papers ready by noon." "No," I said, shaking my head. "Not noon. I need a few days to pack, to say goodbye to the house, and I want to do it right." I paused, looking at him with pleading eyes. "I want a ceremony, Liam." He blinked. "A ceremony?" "Yes," I said. "I want to feel like I am handing over the torch. I want to feel supported. I want to do it on Friday night, here, at home." "Friday," he repeated, calculating. Friday was 3 days away. He was probably thinking about the G-Wagon. He was thinking that if I signed on Friday, he could still stage the accident over the weekend and have the insurance money and the control. Okay, he said slowly. Friday night. And I want everyone there, I added. I want your mom. And I want Jessica. He stiffened slightly at the mention of Jessica. Jessica, he asked. Why Jessica? Because she has been so nice to me, I lied the words tasting like bile. She was so honest with me at the party about my appearance. She cares, and she is family now, right? You said she is your cousin. I want to be surrounded by family when I sign my life away. I want witnesses so no one can say I was forced. That was the key. Witnesses. He loved that idea. If there were witnesses, especially his own mother and mistress, it would bulletproof his claim that I did this voluntarily. You are right, he said, smoothing my hair. That is a beautiful idea, Morgan. A transition ceremony. We will order food. We will make it nice. And then you can go to Oregon and rest. He stood up and pulled his phone out of his pocket. I am going to call Mom, he said. She will be so relieved. He walked into the hallway. I stayed in the chair trembling, but not from fear. I listened to him on the phone. Mom, it is happening, he whispered aggressively. She cracked. She wants to sign. Yes, everything. Power of attorney, medical proxy, full control of the estate. I heard Brenda's voice screeching through the receiver, high and excited. She wants to do it Friday night, Liam continued. She wants a formal signing. She invited you and Jessica. Yeah, I know it is weird, but who cares? She says she wants witnesses. It is perfect for us. Call Sterling. Tell him to draft the final version. The irrevocable one. Sterling. That was the lawyer. A man Andre had told me about, a disbarred attorney who now worked as a consultant for shady real estate deals. Of course, that was who they were using. Liam came back into the kitchen a few minutes later. He looked like he had just won the lottery. It is all set, he said, beaming. Mom is calling Mr. Sterling now. Friday night, 7 p.m. We will get this done, and then you can finally relax. Thank you, Liam, I whispered. You are so good to me. I stood up. I am going to go lie down. I feel dizzy again. Go, he said, ushering me toward the stairs. Rest up. You have a big night on Friday. I walked up the stairs, my hand trailing along the banister. I walked past the guest room where the teddy bear with the camera eye was watching. I walked past the smoke detector that was recording every word. I went into the bedroom and closed the door. I let out a breath that I felt like I had been holding for a month. They took the bait. They swallowed it whole. I pulled out my phone and texted Andre. Friday, 7 p.m. They are bringing the lawyer. Jessica and Brenda will be there. Andre replied instantly. Perfect. I will contact Detective Miller. We will have a team in the van down the street by 6 p.m. Do not take any food or drink from them between now and then. Stay safe. I lay down on the bed staring at the ceiling. I thought about the Mercedes G-Wagon. I thought about the bathtub. I thought about the facility in Oregon. Liam thought Friday was his coronation. He thought he was going to sign a piece of paper and become the king of my castle. He had no idea that he was organizing his own funeral. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 6 months, I actually smiled. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the director. And on Friday night, I was going to yell, "Cut!" Friday morning arrived with a deceptive calm. The sky over Seattle was a slate gray, threatening rain, but inside my house the mood was almost festive. Liam was whistling as he made coffee. He was practically vibrating with anticipation. In his mind, today was payday. Today was the day he officially became the master of my universe. He spent the morning on the phone with Mr. Sterling, the crooked lawyer, finalizing the language of the power of attorney. I heard him say phrases like irrevocable authority and full asset liquidation. He was so focused on the legal trap he was building that he didn't notice I was building a trap of my own. I waited until he went into the garage to detail his car. He wanted it to look good for the G-Wagon trade-in he was already planning, and then I made my move. I retreated to my walk-in closet surrounded by the suits I hadn't worn all week and dialed the number of the one man whose opinion I valued more than almost anyone else's. My boss, David. David answered on the second ring, his voice clipped and cold. Morgan, unless this is a resignation letter or a doctor's note explaining why you ghosted a $3 million client, I do not have time for this. I took a deep breath. I didn't use my weak, sick voice. I used my boardroom voice, the voice that had closed deals in Tokyo and London. David, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I didn't miss that meeting because I was sick. I missed it because my calendar was hacked, my car keys were stolen, and my life is currently being dismantled by someone inside my own home. There was a pause on the other end, the silence of a busy man stopping in his tracks. What are you talking about, Morgan? I am talking about corporate sabotage, fraud, and attempted murder, I said, keeping my voice steady. And tonight at 7 p.m., I am going to prove it. I am holding a signing ceremony at my house. My husband thinks I am handing over my estate, but I am actually handing over the biggest scandal this city has seen in years. I paused, letting the hook sink in. I need you there, David. I need you to witness it, not as my boss, but as a pillar of the community. If you come tonight, I promise you will understand everything. And I promise you will get the Nexus account back, because the story I am going to tell will make us the most talked about firm in the Pacific Northwest. David was silent for another long moment. Then he asked one question. Is it safe? I have security, I said. I just need an audience. I will be there, David said. I hung up and immediately dialed Andre. Is the sheriff in? I asked. He is, Andre replied. His voice sounded tight, focused. Sheriff Miller is an old friend of my dad, but he is also a lawman to his core. I showed him the preliminary evidence, the toxicology report on the halcyon and the credit card fraud. He is furious, Morgan. He wanted to kick your door down this morning. No, I said. We stick to the plan. If we arrest him now, he fights it. He claims it was a misunderstanding. I need him to sign the fraud. I need him to attempt the crime in front of everyone. Miller agrees, Andre said. He is coming tonight. He won't be in uniform. He is coming as a private security consultant I hired for the event, but he is bringing his badge and his cuffs, and he has a patrol car on standby 2 blocks away. Good, I said. And the other guests? Confirmed, Andre said. I reached out to your top 3 vendors and the CEO of the partner firm you work with. I told them you were making a major announcement about your future and requested their presence for a cocktail hour. They are all coming. Liam thinks it is just his mom and his mistress. He is going to have a heart attack when he sees the guest list. What about the video? I asked. This was the most important part. The weapon. It is ready, Andre said. And Morgan, it is damning. Andre had spent the last 24 hours in his home office turning the raw footage from my hidden cameras into a cinematic indictment. He described the final cut to me. I synced the audio from your wire with the video from the chandelier cam, Andre explained. The quality is 4K. I have a split screen of him forging the insurance papers while talking to Jessica on the phone. I have the clip of Brenda telling him to commit you. And I have the money shot, the moment he spikes your water with the pills. I enhanced the zoom. You can see the powder dissolving. It sounded perfect. It sounded lethal. Bring the projector, I said, the big one. I hung up and walked out of the closet. I felt a strange sense of calm. The pieces were moving into place. The audience was gathered. The stage was set. I went downstairs. Liam was coming in from the garage looking pleased with himself. Hey, babe, he said. I just confirmed with Mom. She and Jessica are bringing champagne. That is lovely, I said, smiling weakly. I ordered some catering too, Liam. Just some hors d'oeuvres. Since it is a ceremony, I thought we should have food. He frowned slightly. Catering? That costs money, Morgan. We should be saving every penny for your treatment. I looked at him, making my eyes fill with tears. Please, Liam. It is my last night of freedom before I go to the facility. I just want it to be nice. He sighed, the benevolent dictator granting a final request to the condemned. Fine, he said. But nothing extravagant. We have a G-Wagon. We have medical bills to pay. He had almost slipped. He was so close to the finish line, he was getting sloppy. Thank you, I whispered. At 4 p.m., the catering van arrived. But it wasn't just a few trays of cheese. It was a full-service team. They brought high-top tables, linens, and a portable bar. They began setting up in the living room, moving the furniture to create a theater-style seating arrangement facing the fireplace. Liam came downstairs after his shower and stared at the setup. "Whoa, Morgan," he said, looking around at the bustle of waiters. "This is a bit much, isn't it, for just my mom and the lawyer?" I walked over to him wearing the simple black dress I had chosen for my execution. "I invited a few people from work, too, Liam," I said softly. He whipped his head around, his eyes narrowing. "What? Why?" "I need closure." I lied. "I need to say goodbye to my colleagues. If I just disappear, they will think I was fired. I want to tell them I am stepping down for health reasons. It will help stop the rumors." He processed this. I could see the gears turning in his head. If I told my boss and colleagues I was sick and stepping down, it would publicly validate his narrative. It would be 20 more witnesses to my breakdown. It was actually perfect for him. "Okay," he said slowly, a smile spreading across his face. "That is actually smart, babe. Let them see you. Let them see how tired you are. It will make the transition easier." He checked his watch. "Mr. Sterling will be here at 6:45. Mom and Jessica are coming at 7. Your work friends better not stay too long. I want those papers signed by 8. They won't stay long, I promised. Just long enough to see the truth." He didn't catch the double meaning. He kissed my forehead. "You look pale," he said approvingly. "Perfect." I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. My hands were steady. The catering staff was professional, ignoring the tension in the house. I checked my phone one last time. Andre text, "We are in the van. Miller is parked around the corner. Showtime in 2 hours." I looked at the living room. The projector screen was set up to the side, looking like it was there for a retirement slideshow. The chairs were arranged. The trap was baited. Liam was upstairs putting on his best suit. He was dressing for his victory lap. I took a sip of water and looked at the empty spot on the wall where our wedding photo used to hang. Brenda had taken it down earlier, saying it was too cluttered. Tonight, I wasn't just getting my house back. I was getting my life back. And I had invited the entire front row to watch him burn. The house was quiet at 9 o'clock that night. It was the hour of the ritual. For 6 months, this was the time Liam would walk into the living room with a glass of filtered water and the small blue pill that he claimed was my salvation. Tonight was no different. He walked in smiling that soft, predatory smile, holding the poison in his hand. "Here you go, babe," he said. "You need to rest up for tomorrow. Big day." I looked at the pill in his palm. It was small, innocent looking, just a little compressed powder that had the power to erase my memory and strip me of my will. I looked at him. He was wearing his favorite cashmere sweater, the one I bought him for his birthday last year. He looked comfortable. He looked like a man who had already spent the money he was planning to steal. I stood up slowly. I did not take the pill. Instead, I reached out and took the entire orange prescription bottle from his other hand. "Hey," he said, his brow furrowing. "What are you doing?" I walked past him toward the downstairs powder room. He followed me, confused, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood. "Morgan, give me that," he said, his voice tightening. "You need your medication." Dr. Evans was very specific about the dosage. I walked into the bathroom and stood over the toilet. I opened the cap. It made a sharp click that echoed in the small tiled room. Liam stood in the doorway, blocking the exit, his body tense. "Don't do it, Morgan," he warned. "You are acting crazy again. This is exactly why you need help." I looked him dead in the eye. I didn't blink. I didn't tremble. I poured the entire contents of the bottle into the bowl. The blue pills cascaded down like toxic rain, hitting the water with tiny splashes. I flushed. Liam lunged forward, but it was too late. The water swirled and the pills disappeared. Gone. 6 months of control washed away in 3 seconds. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted, his face turning red. "Do you have any idea how hard it is to get that prescription refilled? You are going to be a wreck tomorrow. You are going to be shaking and panicked, and you are going to ruin everything." I turned to face him. I let a strange, calm smile spread across my face. It wasn't the smile of a victim. It was the smile of a woman who had just cut the brakes on her enemy's car. "No, I won't," I said softly. He stared at me, trying to read my face. He was looking for the fear. He was looking for the confusion he had manufactured, but he didn't see it. "I don't want to be asleep tonight, Liam. I said, stepping closer to him until I could smell the stale coffee on his breath. And I don't want to be groggy tomorrow. Why? He demanded. Because I want to remember it, I said. I want to be fully present when I sign those papers. I want to look at you and know exactly what I am doing. I want to remember the moment I give you everything. I saw the change in his eyes. The anger vanished, replaced by a surge of pure, unadulterated ego. He didn't hear a threat. He heard submission. He heard a woman so broken, so devoted, that she wanted to experience her own destruction with clarity. It fed the narcissist inside him like fresh meat. He relaxed. His shoulders dropped. A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You really mean that, don't you?" he asked. "I do." I lied. "I want to be clear-headed for the ceremony. I want to make you proud." He reached out and stroked my cheek. His hand felt cold. "Okay," he said. "Okay. I guess one night won't hurt. You are right. Tomorrow is a special day. It is the start of our new life. Our new life." He meant his new life. My end. We went upstairs. The dynamic in the bedroom had shifted. Usually I would be unconscious by now and he would be free to roam the house, call Jessica, or forge my signature on insurance documents. But tonight, I was awake. I put on my pajamas and climbed into bed. I picked up a book. Liam didn't know what to do with himself. He paced around the room for a while. He checked his phone. He looked at me, unnerved by my wakefulness, but reassured by my promise of surrender. "I'm going to turn in," he said eventually, climbing into his side of the bed. "Good night, Liam," I said. He turned off the lamp. The room plunged into darkness. I lay there listening to the rain start to tap against the window. I thought about the G-Wagon. I thought about the bathtub. I thought about the $500,000. I waited until his breathing evened out, until I was sure he thought I was asleep. But he wasn't sleeping either. The blue light of his phone illuminated his face. He was texting under the covers, trying to shield the light from me. I didn't need to see the screen. I knew exactly who he was talking to. And thanks to the mirror app Andre had installed, I could read every word in real time on my own phone, which was hidden under my book. I opened the app. Liam. She flushed the pills. Jessica. What? Is she onto us? Liam. No. She is just being dramatic. She said she wants to be awake to sign the papers. She wants to remember giving me control. It is actually kind of pathetic. She is totally broken. Jessica. As long as she signs, did you double-check the wording with Sterling? Liam. Yes. It is ironclad. Once she signs, we own the accounts, the house, the stocks. We can liquidate everything by Monday. Jessica. I can't wait. I am looking at G-Wagon colors right now. Matte black, right? Liam matte black. Tomorrow, it is all ours, baby. Just 24 more hours. I watched the text bubble appear on my screen. Tomorrow, it is all ours. He was so confident. He was so sure that he was the protagonist of this story. He thought he was the clever wolf and I was the sheep waiting to be eaten. He had no idea that the sheep had invited the hunter, the butcher, and the sheriff to dinner. I put my phone away. I rolled over and looked at his back. I felt a surge of adrenaline so strong I had to clench my fists to keep from shaking. Enjoy the dream, Liam, I thought, because when you wake up, the nightmare begins. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark rehearsing my lines. I visualized the moment the police would walk through the door. I visualized the look on Brenda's face when the video started playing. I visualized Jessica realizing that the G-Wagon was actually a prison transport van. The rain fell harder against the glass, washing the city clean. Tomorrow, I would wash my life clean too. I closed my eyes and waited for the sun to rise on the day of my revenge. The rain lashed against the windows of my living room, creating a rhythm that matched the pounding of my heart. But my pulse wasn't racing from fear. It was racing with the thrill of the hunt. The stage was set perfectly. The catering staff had cleared the appetizers, leaving only glasses of sparkling water on the high tables. My living room, usually a sanctuary of quiet minimalism, had been transformed into a bizarre theater. In the front row, sitting on my beige sofa like royalty, were the guests of honor. Brenda was wearing a black dress that looked more appropriate for a funeral, her face set in a mask of practiced concern. Next to her sat Jessica. She had the audacity to wear white, a sharp white blazer and trousers, as if she were the innocent party here. She crossed her legs, swinging her foot impatiently, her eyes darting to the stack of legal documents on the coffee table. And then there was Mr. Sterling, the lawyer Liam had hired. He sat in the armchair sweating slightly, in a suit that looked expensive, but fit him poorly. He kept checking his watch, tapping a gold pen against his knee. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who made his living helping people bury their secrets. Behind them, seated in the folding chairs the caterers had provided, were the witnesses I had invited. My boss David sat with his arms crossed, his face unreadable. Next to him were two of our biggest vendors and the CEO of our partner firm. And in the back corner, leaning against the wall with a deceptive slouch, was Sheriff Miller. He wasn't in uniform. He wore a dark jacket and jeans, looking like just another concerned friend. But I saw the way his eyes tracked Liam's every movement. Liam stood in the center of the room, vibrating with energy. He looked handsome in his navy suit, the one I had bought him for our engagement party. He was playing the role of the tragic, supportive husband to perfection. He walked over to the coffee table and picked up the thick binder of documents. "Thank you all for coming," Liam said, his voice thick with emotion. He looked back at the rows of people. "I know this is an unconventional gathering, but Morgan wanted her friends and family close as she makes this difficult transition. It has been a hard few months. Seeing the woman I love struggle with her health has been devastating. But tonight is about healing. It is about letting go." Brenda sniffed loudly, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. Jessica reached over and squeezed her hand, performing a pantomime of shared grief. Liam turned to me. I was standing by the fireplace wearing my simple black dress. I kept my hands clasped in front of me to stop them from shaking. Not from nerves, but from the sheer force of the rage I was suppressing. "Morgan," Liam said softly, extending his hand. "Are you ready?" I nodded slowly. I walked toward him. The room went silent. The only sound was the rain and the soft hum of the projector fan that Andre had set up earlier. I sat down on the ottoman facing the coffee table. Liam sat next to me, close, his thigh pressing against mine. He opened the binder. "Okay," he whispered. "Mr. Sterling has tabbed everything. You just need to sign where the yellow stickers are. This first one is the medical proxy. It gives me the right to make decisions about your treatment and facility placement." I looked at the paper. Irrevocable medical power of attorney. I picked up the heavy Mont Blanc pen he offered me. It felt cold and solid in my hand. Liam watched the pen. His eyes were wide, the pupils dilated. He was hungry. He was so close to the feast he could taste it. "And this next one," he said, turning the page, quickly, eager to get to the money. "This is the financial power of attorney. It gives me full access to all banking, investment, and real estate assets so I can pay your bills while you are away." I hovered the pen over the signature line. I felt the eyes of everyone in the room on me. David was leaning forward in his chair. Sheriff Miller had stopped leaning against the wall and was standing straight. Liam held his breath. I lowered the pen. The tip touched the paper. A tiny dot of ink bled into the fiber. Then I stopped. I looked up at Liam. I looked deep into his eyes. I saw the man I had married 4 years ago. I saw the lies. I saw the betrayal. I saw the murder plot hidden behind blue eyes. "Wait," I said softly. Liam froze. "What? What is it, babe? Your hand is shaking. Do you want me to help you guide it?" I pulled my hand back and capped the pen with a sharp snap. "No," I said, my voice rising, shedding the weak, trembling timbre I had used for days. My voice became strong, clear, the voice of a CEO. "I don't need help, Liam. But before I sign my life away, before I hand you the keys to my kingdom, I think we should take a moment." "A moment?" Liam asked, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. "A moment for what? You said you wanted to get this done." "I did," I said, standing up. I towered over him as he sat there. I walked over to the side table where the projector remote lay. I picked it up. I said I wanted a ceremony, Liam. And what is a ceremony without a little reflection? I want us to look back at how we got here. I want everyone in this room to understand exactly why I am doing this. I turned to the audience. I looked at Brenda, whose fake tears had stopped instantly. I looked at Jessica, who was frowning, sensing a shift in the air. I want to share some family memories, I said. Liam stood up, laughing nervously. Morgan, honey, I don't think this is the time for a slideshow. You are tired. Let's just sign the papers and get you to bed. Sit down, Liam, I said. It wasn't a request. It was a command. He blinked, stunned by the authority in my tone. I said, sit down. I repeated, my voice cracking like a whip. Liam sat. He looked at his mother, confused. Brenda looked back at him, her eyes narrowing. I pointed the remote at the large screen that had been pulled down over the window. You wanted a narrative, Liam, I said, my finger hovering over the play button. You wanted everyone to know the story of my decline. You wanted them to see how sick I am, how confused I am. I looked at David in the back row. He gave me a barely perceptible nod. Well, I continued, I think they deserve to see the truth. I think they deserve to see exactly what happens in this house when the lights go out. I pressed play. The screen flared to life. The room was bathed in the harsh, high-definition light of the projector, and the silence that followed was the sound of a guillotine blade hanging in the air, waiting to drop. The screen flickered to life, bathing the dim living room in a harsh, cold light. The hum of the projector fan was the only sound for a split second before the audio kicked in. It was crystal clear, amplified by the surround sound speakers I had installed specifically for this moment. The first clip was dated 3 weeks ago. The timestamp in the corner read 8:58 p.m. The angle was high shot from the smoke detector above the kitchen island. In the video, Liam stood at the counter. He looked relaxed, humming a tune as he opened a cabinet. He pulled out the familiar orange prescription bottle. But he didn't just take out a pill. On the massive screen, every detail was magnified. We watched as Liam poured 3 blue pills onto a napkin. He picked up a heavy marble pestle I used for spices. With a rhythmic grinding motion, he crushed the pills into a fine azure dust. He swept the powder into a glass of water, stirring it vigorously until it dissolved completely. I saw the real Liam, the one sitting next to me on the ottoman, stop breathing, his face drained of color, turning a sickly shade of gray. On the screen, the video, Liam held the glass up to the light, checking for sediment. Then he turned and smiled at the empty room. Nighty-night, Morgan, the video, Liam whispered. The audio was so crisp, it sounded like he was whispering directly into the ears of everyone in the room. A collective gasp rippled through the audience behind us. I heard my boss, David, inhale sharply. One of the vendors muttered something that sounded like a prayer. They were watching a crime. They were watching a man poison his wife with the casual demeanor of someone making a cup of tea. I didn't look at the audience. I kept my eyes locked on the screen. The scene cut to black for a second, then opened on a new angle. This was the view from the teddy bear in the guest room. The timestamp was from last Tuesday. 11:30 p.m. The door opened and Jessica walked in. She was wearing my silk robe, the same robe I had looked for just yesterday and couldn't find. She sat on the bed, my guest bed, and patted the mattress. Liam walked into the frame a moment later. He wasn't wearing a shirt. The intimacy on the screen was jarring, but it wasn't the physical act that made the room freeze. It was the conversation. Is she out? Jessica asked on the screen, leaning back against the pillows I had embroidered by hand. She is a vegetable, Liam replied, laughing as he sat next to her. I upped the dose like we talked about. She won't wake up until noon. We have the whole house to ourselves. Jessica giggled, a sound that grated against the nerves of everyone watching. I love this house, she said, running her hand along the headboard. I can't wait until we repaint. This gray is so depressing. When do you think the money will clear? Liam leaned in and kissed her. Soon, he promised. Once I get that power of attorney on Friday, we liquidate the stock portfolio first. That is about 400 grand. Then we sell the jewelry. Then we put the house on the market. By the time anyone realizes she is broke, she will be locked away in Oregon, and we will be in Cabo. In the living room, the real Jessica let out a small, strangled squeak. She pulled her legs in tight, trying to make herself smaller, trying to disappear into the beige fabric of the sofa. But there was nowhere to hide. The white light from the screen illuminated her terror. I saw Sheriff Miller shift his weight. He wasn't leaning against the wall anymore. He had unbuttoned his jacket, his hand hovering near his waist. But I wasn't done. The finale was yet to come. I pressed the button on the remote one last time. The screen shifted to the living room view. The timestamp was from the night of the party just a few days ago. The chandelier camera provided a wide cinematic shot of the room we were currently sitting in. On screen, Brenda was sitting exactly where she was sitting now. She was holding a glass of wine. Liam was pacing in front of the fireplace. "I am worried, Mom," the video, Liam said. "She is strong. What if she doesn't crack? What if she refuses to sign?" Brenda took a long sip of wine. Her face on the screen was twisted into a sneer of pure malice. "She will sign," Brenda said. "You just have to keep the pressure on, make her feel crazy, hide her things, mess with her work, break her down, Liam. But what if she figures it out?" Liam asked, "What if she finds the pills?" "Then you have a problem," Brenda replied calmly. She swirled the wine in her glass, staring into the red liquid. "Honestly, Liam, it would be cleaner if she just didn't wake up one morning." The air in the living room was sucked out instantly. It was a vacuum of shock. On screen, Liam stopped pacing. "What are you saying, Mom?" "I am saying that accidents happen." Brenda continued, her voice devoid of any humanity. "People who abuse medication have accidents all the time. They slip in the tub, they fall downstairs. If she dies because of her own negligence, there is no divorce, no division of assets. You get everything immediately. Life insurance pays out double for accidental death." She looked up at her son and smiled. "If she dies, it saves us a lot of legal fees, Liam. Just think about it." The video froze on Brenda's smiling face. I paused it there. I wanted that image burned into the retinas of every person in the room, the image of a mother encouraging her son to murder his wife for convenience. For 3 seconds, there was absolute silence. Then chaos erupted. The real Brenda jumped to her feet. She knocked her water glass over, shattering it against the coffee table. "Turn it off!" she screamed, her voice shrill and breaking. "Turn it off right now." She pointed a shaking finger at me. "This is fake. You made this up. It is AI. It is a deep fake. My son never did this. I never said that. You are a liar. You are a sick, twisted liar." She looked frantically at the audience, her eyes wild. "Don't believe her. She is a computer genius or something. She doctored the video. She is trying to frame us because she is jealous." Liam sat frozen on the ottoman. He couldn't move. He looked at the screen, then at me, then at the sheriff. He knew. He knew that video wasn't AI. He knew the specific shirt he was wearing. He knew the exact time that conversation happened. He realized that the entire time he thought he was hunting me, I had been watching him from the ceiling. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The arrogance that had defined him for years had evaporated, leaving behind a terrified, small man. Jessica was the first to react physically. She realized the gravity of the situation instantly. She saw the faces of the business partners filled with disgust. She saw the sheriff stepping forward. "I didn't do anything," she shrieked, standing up so fast her chair tipped over backward. "I just sat there. I didn't say anything about killing anyone." "This is your family drama, Liam. I am leaving." She grabbed her purse and scrambled toward the hallway, her high heels clicking frantically on the hardwood floor. She was fast fueled by the desperate need to distance herself from the sinking ship, but she didn't get far. Andre stepped out from the shadows of the kitchen doorway. He was a solid wall of muscle and righteous anger. He didn't say a word. He just crossed his arms and blocked the exit. Jessica skidded to a halt, nearly running into him. She turned to run toward the back door, but 2 uniformed officers who I hadn't even seen enter were already standing there blocking the path to the patio. "Sit down, Jessica," Andre said, his voice deep and commanding. "The show isn't over yet." Jessica began to cry, loud, ugly sobs of self-pity. She backed away from Andre, retreating until she hit the wall, sliding down it to the floor, clutching her expensive white blazer around her. Brenda was still screaming. She was hysterical, grabbing Mr. Sterling by the lapels of his cheap suit. "Do something," she yelled at the lawyer. "Sue her. This is defamation. She recorded us without consent. It is illegal. You can't use this." Mr. Sterling looked like he wanted to vanish. He peeled Brenda's hands off his suit and stepped away from her, creating physical distance between himself and his client. Actually, Mrs. Brooks Sterling said, his voice trembling, Washington is a two-party consent state for audio, but there is an exception for recording evidence of a serious felony involving bodily harm or domestic violence. And, well, I think this qualifies. He looked at me with fear in his eyes. I didn't know, he stammered. Morgan, please. I just drafted the papers. I didn't know about the pills. I didn't know about the insurance. I ignored him. I looked at Liam. He finally found his voice. It was a whisper, a rasping sound that came from a dry throat. Morgan, he said. I looked down at him. I didn't feel love. I didn't feel hate. I felt a cold, clinical satisfaction. You wanted a signature, Liam, I said, my voice cutting through Brenda's screaming and Jessica's sobbing. You wanted me to sign over my life. I reached into the pocket of my dress. I pulled out a single piece of paper. It wasn't the power of attorney. It was a document I had prepared with Andre earlier that day. I unfolded it and placed it on top of the binder covering the fake medical proxy he had tried to make me sign. This is the only thing I am signing tonight, I said. It was a sworn statement for the police pressing charges for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. I picked up the Mont Blanc pen. I clicked it open, and with a steady hand in front of the man who tried to kill me, his mother who encouraged it, and the mistress who wanted my car, I signed my name, Morgan Elizabeth Ross. I capped the pen and tossed it onto his lap. Done, I said. I looked at Sheriff Miller and gave him a nod. They are all yours, Sheriff. Miller stepped forward, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. The metallic click of the ratchet sounded louder than the thunder outside. Liam Brooks Miller said, his voice booming through the room. You are under arrest. Liam looked at the handcuffs, then at me. His eyes were filled with tears now, but they were tears of a man who realized the game was over. Morgan, please, he begged, reaching out a hand. Baby, we can talk about this. I can explain. It was the stress. I didn't mean it. Don't touch me, I said. I turned my back on him. I walked over to David and my colleagues. They stood up as I approached, forming a protective circle around me. David put a hand on my shoulder. I am so sorry, Morgan, he said. We had no idea. I know I said watching the officers haul Brenda screaming out the front door. But now you do, and now I am going to take that sabbatical, not because I am sick, but because I have a lot of testifying to do. I watched as they dragged Liam out. He was slumped over his feet, dragging a broken man. He didn't look like an entrepreneur anymore. He looked like a convict. I took a deep breath of the air in my living room. It still smelled like the expensive cologne he wore, but I knew that would fade. I would hire cleaners. I would burn the furniture. I would sell the house. But for now, I just watched the show, and it was the best movie I had ever seen. The living room was chaos, but I stood in the center of it like the eye of a hurricane, perfectly calm, perfectly still. I watched Sheriff Miller pull Liam to his feet. My husband, who just 10 minutes ago had been ready to claim his throne, now looked like a child who had lost his mother in a supermarket. His eyes were wide, darting from the screen to the handcuffs, trying to process the sudden violent shift in his reality. From the hallway, I heard the heavy boots of the tactical team Andre had mentioned. They didn't knock. They didn't need to. They flooded into the room, 4 officers in total, moving with efficient precision. They weren't here for a noise complaint. They were here for a takedown. Liam Brooks. Sheriff Miller said, his voice cutting through Brenda's shrieking like a knife. You are under arrest for attempted murder in the 2nd degree, 3 counts of identity theft, wire fraud, and forgery. Attempted murder, Liam choked out. The words seemed to stick in his throat. That is insane. I never touched her. I never hurt her. It was just talk. It was just a joke. Miller didn't even blink. He spun Liam around and slammed him against the wall, not gently. We have video of you crushing a Schedule 4 controlled substance into your wife's drink, Miller said. We have toxicology reports from the lab confirming the presence of triazolam in the sample provided by your wife. And we have your voice on tape discussing an accidental overdose to collect insurance money. That is not a joke, son. That is a conspiracy. The sound of the handcuffs clicking around Liam's wrists was the sweetest music I had ever heard. Click, click, the sound of my freedom. Across the room, 2 other officers were dealing with Brenda. She was fighting them, kicking and scratching like a feral cat. "Get your hands off me!" she screamed. "Do you know who I am? I am a respected member of this community. I demand to speak to my lawyer. Sterling. Sterling, tell them." Mr. Sterling was cowering in the corner, holding his briefcase like a shield. He looked at Brenda and shook his head frantically. "I am not your lawyer, Mrs. Brooks." Sterling stammered. "I am just a consultant, and I am definitely not representing you in a capital case. I am going to be a witness for the prosecution." "Traitor," Brenda screeched. She lunged at him, but the officer caught her arm and twisted it behind her back. "Brenda Brooks," the officer said, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation of a felony. We have you on tape advising your son to stage a fatal accident. You have the right to remain silent." "I suggest you use it," Andre said from the doorway, his voice deep and mocking. "Although I doubt you can." Then there was Jessica. She was still on the floor, weeping into her white blazer. She looked up as an officer approached her. Her makeup was running black streaks of mascara, ruining her perfect face. I didn't know she sobbed. "I swear, I didn't know he was going to kill her. I just wanted the car. I just wanted the money. I am a victim here too. He lied to me." The officer wasn't moved. He pulled her up by her arm. "Jessica Tate," he said, "you are under arrest for burglary, unauthorized access to a computer system, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You are also being detained for violating the restraining order filed in King County 3 years ago by your previous partner." That was a nice surprise Andre had found. Jessica had a history. As they marched them out, the room felt suddenly larger. The air felt cleaner. But Liam wasn't done. He stopped at the door, planting his feet, resisting the sheriff's grip. He turned his head to look at me one last time. His face was red veins bulging in his neck. "You can't do this, Morgan," he shouted. "I am your husband. Washington is a community property state. That money is mine, too. The house is ours. You can't just throw me out. I have rights." I walked over to him. I stopped 3 feet away, close enough to see the fear in his eyes, but far enough that he couldn't touch me ever again. I smiled. It was a cold, sharp smile. "Actually, Liam," I said, "you are wrong. Again." I reached into the binder on the coffee table and pulled out a document I had kept hidden at the very back. It was yellowed with age, dated 4 years ago. "Do you remember this?" I asked, holding it up. He squinted at it. "It is our prenuptial agreement," I said. "You signed it the week before the wedding because you were trying to prove you weren't marrying me for my money. You wanted to look noble." I flipped to page 12. Section 4, paragraph B. I read aloud. "In the event of infidelity proven by video or photographic evidence, all assets acquired during the marriage revert to the injured party, and any claim to spousal support is immediately voided." I lowered the paper and looked him in the eye. "I have you on video sleeping with Jessica in my bed, Liam. I have you paying her rent with my credit card. That is infidelity. That is theft." I stepped closer. "And as for the house, I bought it 3 years before I met you. It is separate property. You never put a dime into the mortgage. You just lived here. You were a guest, Liam, a guest who overstayed his welcome." His jaw dropped. He looked at the document like it was a holy relic that burned his eyes. "So no," I continued. "The assets aren't ours. They are mine. The house is mine. The savings are mine. Even the frequent flyer miles you used to book your business trips to see Jessica, those are mine too." I leaned in and whispered just for him, "You are leaving this marriage with exactly what you brought into it. A suitcase of cheap clothes and a mountain of student debt. Oh, and a felony record. Congratulations." Liam made a sound that was half sob, half growl. He lunged at me, but Sheriff Miller yanked him back so hard he nearly lost his footing. "Get him out of here," Miller said. I watched them drag him down the front steps. He was still shouting about his rights, about how unfair it was, about how I had tricked him. But his voice was getting fainter, drowned out by the rain and the sirens wailing in the distance. I turned back to the room. The catering staff was frozen. My colleagues were staring at me with a mixture of awe and horror. I walked over to the table and picked up a glass of sparkling water. My hand was steady as a rock. I raised the glass to David. "Sorry about the meeting on Thursday," I said. "I had some pest control issues to deal with." David let out a long breath and shook his head, a small smile appearing on his face. "I think you handled it, Morgan," he said. I took a sip of the water. It tasted clean. It tasted like victory. I looked at the empty doorway where my husband had just been dragged out. Section 4, paragraph B, I whispered to myself. Always read the fine print. The weeks following the arrest were a blur of depositions, meetings with the district attorney, and forensic audits. But unlike the chaos of the last 6 months, this was a controlled burn. I was no longer the victim scrambling to survive. I was the star witness, the prosecutor's best asset, and the architect of my own justice. The wheels of the legal system turned slowly, but when they finally crushed Liam and his accomplices, the sound was more satisfying than any symphony. The trial for Liam was the main event. He tried to plead not guilty at first, claiming the video was taken out of context, that he was just role-playing, that the pills were for himself. But Andre had done his job too well. The forensic data from his laptop, the forged insurance papers with his fingerprints on them, and the toxicology report from my blood were insurmountable. His lawyer, a public defender, because I had frozen all our assets, advised him to take a plea deal to avoid a life sentence. On the day of the sentencing, the courtroom was packed. I sat in the front row, flanked by Andre and my sister. I wore white. It was a deliberate choice. I wanted to look like the ghost he tried to create, haunting him from the gallery. Liam was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit. He had lost weight. The arrogance that had defined him, the swagger of the entrepreneur, was gone. He looked small, pale, and terrified. When the judge asked him if he had anything to say, he mumbled a pathetic apology, trying to garner sympathy. The judge was not impressed. "Liam Brooks," the judge said, his voice echoing off the mahogany walls, "you betrayed the sacred trust of marriage in the most heinous way possible. You systematically poisoned your wife, plotted her death for financial gain, and treated her life as a commodity to be traded for a luxury car." The gavel came down with a thunderous crack. "I sentence you to 15 years in a state penitentiary for attempted murder in the second degree, with an additional 5 years for wire fraud and identity theft to be served concurrently." 15 years. I did the math in my head. He would be 50 years old when he got out. His youth, his potential, his dreams of being a tech mogul, all gone. He looked back at me as the bailiffs took him away. I didn't smile. I just watched him disappear through the side door, erased from my life. Brenda's punishment was different, but in some ways, it was more brutal for a woman like her. She avoided prison time due to her age and a plea bargain where she turned on her son, admitting she knew about the plot. She received 5 years of strict probation. But the real sentence wasn't handed down by a judge. It was handed down by her community. Brenda was the queen bee of her local church, the head of the charity committee, a woman who thrived on social standing. But news travels fast in the suburbs, especially when it involves a mother conspiring to kill her daughter-in-law. On her first Sunday back after the scandal broke, she walked into her church wearing her Sunday best head held high, expecting forgiveness. I wasn't there, but Andre's aunt was. She told me that as Brenda walked down the aisle to her usual pew, the entire row stood up and moved. No one spoke to her. The pastor removed her from all committees. The women she used to gossip with turned their backs when she approached the coffee station. She was excommunicated not officially, but socially. She was a pariah. She ended up selling her house and moving to a small town in Idaho where no one knew her name, living out her days in lonely obscurity. And then there was Jessica, the mistress with the taste for my wine and my wardrobe. Her downfall had a twist that even I didn't see coming. When the police ran her prints, a red flag popped up in the national database. Jessica Tate wasn't just a greedy homewrecker. She was a fugitive. She had violated a felony restraining order in California 3 years prior, involving an ex-boyfriend she had stalked and harassed. Because she had crossed state lines to come to Seattle, and because she was now involved in a new conspiracy, the family court judge was merciless. She was stripped of custody of her son. It was the only part of this saga that made me feel a pang of sadness. The little boy, the innocent pawn in their game, was placed in the care of his maternal grandparents in Sacramento. Jessica was deported back to California to face her outstanding warrants and serve time for the burglary charge at my house. She wanted a G-Wagon. She got a prison transport bus. Financially, the cleanup was extensive but victorious. Andre was a magician. He tracked down every penny Liam had siphoned off. We sold Liam's car, his expensive watches, and his collection of designer sneakers. We recovered $45,000 in liquid assets. As for the $58,000 in credit card debt he had racked up in my name, Andre filed a comprehensive fraud package with the banks. Because we had the police report and the conviction, the banks wiped the debt clean. My credit score bounced back within months. I remember sitting in Andre's office when the final confirmation letter came from American Express. 0 balance. "It is over," Andre said, sliding the paper across the desk. "You are in the Black Morgan." I looked at the paper. It wasn't just a number. It was proof that they hadn't taken anything from me that I couldn't get back. They stole my trust, yes, but they couldn't steal my future. The divorce hearing happened 2 months later. It was a formality, really, but I insisted on being there. I wanted to close the book personally. The morning of the hearing, I woke up and stood in front of my closet. I pushed aside the black and gray suits I had worn for months. I reached for a suit I had bought years ago, but never had the courage to wear. It was bright, unapologetic crimson red. It was the color of power, the color of blood, the color of life. I walked into the courthouse looking like a flame in a sea of gray suits. My lawyer, a shark named Eleanor, who made Mr. Asir Sterling look like a goldfish, led me into the mediation room. Liam was there. He had been transported from the county jail. He was handcuffed to the table wearing his orange jumpsuit. His hair was buzzed short. He looked tired. When I sat down opposite him, he looked at my suit. He blinked as if the color hurt his eyes. "You look good, Morgan," he said, his voice raspy. I didn't return the compliment. I opened my file. "Sign here, here, and here," I said, sliding the papers across the table. He looked at the documents. It was a total surrender. No alimony, no claim to the house, no claim to my pension. He was leaving with nothing. "Morgan," he said, not picking up the pen, "can we just talk for a second? Without the lawyers." My lawyer looked at me. I nodded. She stepped back but stayed in the room. "What is it, Liam?" I asked. He leaned forward as far as the chains would allow, his eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I really am. I don't know what happened to me. It was Jessica. She got in my head. She made me think we deserved more. And my mom, she pushed me. I was weak, Morgan. I was seduced by them. I never really wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to be someone." He looked at me with those puppy dog eyes that had worked on me 1,000 times before. "I loved you, Morgan. Somewhere inside, I still do. Please tell me you know that I was just a victim of them too." I looked at him. I studied his face. I looked for a shred of sincerity, but all I saw was a desperate con man running his last hustle. I leaned forward. The red fabric of my suit rustled in the quiet room. "You were not seduced." "Liam," I said, my voice cold and hard as diamond, "you were not a victim. You are a narcissist. You saw a woman who worked hard, and instead of being inspired, you were envious. You saw my success, and you wanted to steal it. Jessica didn't make you crush those pills. Brenda didn't make you forge my signature." I pointed a manicured finger at his chest. "You did that. You did it because you are greedy. You did it because you are lazy. And you did it because you thought you were smarter than me." I sat back, crossing my arms. "And as for love, Liam, you don't know what love is. Love is protection. Love is safety. What you had for me was an appetite, and I am done feeding you." I tapped the paper. "Sign it, or I will make sure the parole board gets a letter from me every single year, reminding them of the G-Wagon conversation." He stared at me for a long moment. He saw the wall. He saw the end. He picked up the pen. His hand shook as he signed his name 3 times. He slid the papers back to me. "Goodbye, Liam," I said. I stood up and walked out of the room. I didn't look back. I walked out of the courthouse and into the sunlight. The air tasted sweet. I was single. I was solvent. and I was free. 6 months later. The Seattle rain was a distant memory. The humidity of Miami hit my face as I stepped out onto the balcony, but it was a warm, embracing heat. I walked to the railing and looked out. The Atlantic Ocean stretched out before me, a vast expanse of turquoise and deep blue. I had sold the house in Seattle. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts in the walls. I sold it for a profit, took my savings, and bought this penthouse in South Beach. It was everything the old house wasn't. It was modern, filled with light, with floor-to-ceiling windows that let the sun in every morning. I heard the sound of a cork popping behind me. I turned around. Andre and my sister Tara were standing in my living room. They had flown down for the weekend to help me break in the new place. Andre was holding a bottle of vintage champagne. "To new beginnings," Tara said, handing me a flute. I took the glass. The bubbles danced in the sunlight. "To new beginnings," I echoed, "and to the best forensic accountant in the world." Andre laughed, clinking his glass against mine. "Just doing my job, Morgan. Just doing my job." We stood there watching the waves crash against the shore. I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in years. My career was flourishing. I had started my own consulting firm, working remotely on my own terms. I had no debt. I had no husband drugging my water. I had only possibility. That night, after they went to their hotel, I sat on my balcony alone. The city lights of Miami reflected off the water. I thought about the blue pills. I thought about the nights I spent fighting to stay awake, terrified of what would happen if I closed my eyes. I walked into my bedroom. The bed was huge, covered in crisp white linens. There was a glass of water on the nightstand. Just water. Clear, pure, safe. I climbed into bed and pulled the duvet up to my chin. I didn't check the door locks 3 times. I didn't check the smoke detector for cameras. They thought I was weak. They thought I was a cash cow, to be milked and slaughtered. But they forgot that even the gentlest creature will fight when backed into a corner. I had walked through the fire, and I had burned them all down with the truth. I closed my eyes. The sound of the ocean was a lullaby. I took a deep breath. They thought I needed pills to sleep. But tonight, and for the rest of my life, I would sleep the deep, restful sleep of a woman who had won. Good night, world. The story of Morgan and Liam is a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones sleeping right beside us. We are often raised to believe that marriage is a partnership built on absolute blind trust. However, Morgan's journey teaches us a harder, more vital truth. Trust should never come at the expense of your own security and intuition. The single most important shield Morgan possessed was not the police or her forensic accountant. It was her financial autonomy. Because she protected her assets before the marriage with a prenup, and because she maintained her career despite her husband's manipulation, she held the power even when she was vulnerable. Financial abuse is often the quiet precursor to physical harm. This story proves that keeping your name on the deed, maintaining a separate bank account, and understanding your own finances are not acts of selfishness. They are acts of self-preservation. Furthermore, this narrative illustrates the terrifying effectiveness of gaslighting. Liam almost succeeded because he made Morgan doubt her own sanity. The lesson here is to trust your gut feeling over someone else's narrative. If facts do not add up, if you feel like you are losing your mind, or if your partner tries to isolate you from your reality, do not shrink away. Investigate. Morgan survived because she stopped listening to his words and started looking at the data. She replaced emotion with evidence. Ultimately, Morgan's victory wasn't just about putting a criminal in jail. It was about the refusal to remain a victim. It serves as a powerful testament that you are the CEO of your own life. No matter how deep the betrayal or how carefully planned the destruction, you possess the strength to wake up, fight back, and build a new life on your own terms. If you believe that financial independence is a woman's best defense, hit that like button. And I want to hear from you in the comments. If you found out your partner was plotting against you like Liam would, you walk away quietly? Or would you choose the nuclear option like Morgan? Let me know below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story of justice served.